My name is Daisy Ashford, and I am a provider of dyslexia instruction at Harmony Science Academy Middle High in Beaumont, Texas. Join us as my colleagues and I engage in a collaborative PLC session designed to share the knowledge of how the implementation of Reading by Design dyslexia instruction prepares our students for success in the core content class.
All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate your support. This is my way of trying to engage the students. So like the first time I did that, everybody knows PowerPoint is pretty simple. First time I did it, they were like, woo! I was like, oh, I got their attention for just a few seconds. So I just want to welcome you all, my fellow co-teachers, and I call you my teacher friends because you guys really are. And I know that the majority of us work with students that struggle with dyslexia. And so, you know, in my class, I tell the students all the time that my class is to support you in your core content classes, okay? Right here to the back before we get started, we have our wall of fame, and Mr. Einstein is trying to fall down. But just to try to encourage our students, because in the middle school, high school level, a lot of times they are mentally struggling with the fact that they are still reading on the 3rd and 4th grade level. And even though they know that they have dyslexia, they don't quite always understand what it is. They know that they received services when they were in elementary. And so I like to do the wall of fame to let them know that although you may struggle with something that you can't help, you know, you can still do great things. And so they all like to identify with Tom Holland, but I want to put a note in there that the man in the middle is a real life superhero. That's my husband. Yeah. And go figure, he has dyslexia. Wow. And for many years he struggled and struggled and struggled, and we never knew what the struggle was until I became a dyslexia interventionist. Wow. And I said, Aubrey, as I'm going through the training, I see you're hitting every marker for dyslexia. And I gave him the baseline test and he bombed it. He failed it. And he failed it, but we were just kind of so happy that we finally knew what was going on with him. But even though he struggled with reading and writing all of his life, all throughout college, I helped him. He would write his paper. I would look at it and say, what is this? You know, but he overcame it and is now a lieutenant colonel in the United States Army. And so I want our students to know that you absolutely can overcome and still do great things. Ms. Lytle, can you check and make sure that I press play? Because I have a habit of being at very important events, weddings, basketball games, baseball games.
It is going.
So I'll try to cut that out. Basketball games, and I'm holding the camera and I did not press play. So thank you also, Mr. Ishik, for joining us. It's important, you know, when our administrative team support us. So the program that we teach in our class is the Reading by Design Dyslexia Intervention program, and I absolutely love it. A lot of times it's misunderstood because it seems like, if you guys notice, you have alphabet strips in front of you, you have counters. We're gonna do a quick 5-minute run-through lesson, just exposing you to the very basic things that our students need to overcome the struggles of dyslexia. As we know, dyslexia is a specific learning disorder, and it is neurological in origin, which means it's something that affects their brain, their ability to understand sounds in the smallest unit of sound, which we call phonemes, okay? So like for our dyslexia students, many times they give the appearance that they can read because they have memorized all of their lives. And the best example that I like to share with them to help them understand what's going on is that when you were little, 3, 4 years old, before you could really read, when your mom passed by McDonald's, you knew it's McDonald's because you memorized and you heard those words. And so one way we kind of test for that is to give a word that we know that our students have learned and memorized over the years, but then we change one of the vowels or change one of the phonemic sounds, and they can't read that word. So they may have memorized pick, like you pick up your shirt. But if I take that and change it to SL, slick, many times they can't read the word slick because they haven't memorized it. And so those are just some things that we focus on in class, and we'll throw in nonsense words, and they're like, Ms. Ashford, what is this? I'm like, use your coding because you can read any word. And so for our students, I tell them, we code to read. We read to comprehend. We comprehend so you can learn what your teachers in your core content classes are trying to teach you. And so we're gonna just quickly run through a little lesson. Everything we do in class is interactive. It is totally different from the core content classes. I received a lot of support from our administration after I went to the trainings to say, hey, when you all come in to look at us, our class is not gonna look like Ms. Blaine's class. It's not gonna look like Ms. Thawley's class. It's a whole different world, but we have worked to try to incorporate some of those things like turn and talk and, tracking the speaker, those things that we can implement, but the actual content is very, very different. And so before I jump into the lesson, let's take a look at the items on your desk. So the very first thing I wanna highlight is the white sheet of paper. This is my attempt to try to align with a do now, right? And so these are all the codings that our students have learned as we go through lesson cycles. And so because they have tendency to forget, we do a code card every day to help them remember the codings for the phonemes and sounds that we've done. Right here we have the alphabet strip, because also along with dyslexia, sometimes students get their letters mixed up or the order of the letters, they forget. And then also we use this to teach them how to accent. So as they're learning to read and decode words, they know how to accent. One example is the word butterfly that I like to use. They like this word. And so the accent is on the first syllable. If you accent that word butterfly in the middle, it would sound like butterfly. And so if I walked up to you and say, oh, Miss Stallings, that's a beautiful butterfly, you would think that, what's wrong with Ms. Ashford, right? Or butterfly, if you accent the third syllable. So teaching them that once they sound the word out, how to say it in a way that they understand what the word is. Right here, we get to look at our lovely faces every day, and I noticed that some of my mirrors were missing, so I'm gonna have to check in with a couple of students on tomorrow, because they're sitting in somebody's class looking at a mirror. But we use this to distinguish between sounds that are voiced and unvoiced, to teach them the difference between the vowel sounds, between the consonants, and everything about our program is to build automaticity. Because what's automatic for you in reading, what's automatic for all of us that are not dyslexic, it is absolutely not automatic for them. And so this skill set is not just for their education, but for the rest of their life, just like with my husband, who didn't have the benefits of having structured learning like this when he was young in rural Mississippi. Other thing we have resource is our counters, because sometimes students struggling with determining how many syllables in a word. So we have them to say the word and they count it out. Every time you pause, count it out. Every time there's one opening of the mouth, that's one syllable, which denotes that's one vowel in that syllable. What makes a syllable, it has one vowel in it, one opening of the mouth. So all of these strategies are to help them build that automatic ability to read. So it's a lot of stuff going on here, and because of that, I put it on PowerPoint so I don't forget a step. Also, many of our students struggle with looking up words in the dictionary. They really, you have to like physically see it to struggle with it. So we teach them about the guide words. We teach them about looking at the second alphabet or second letter in the word to see if your word would be in the middle of those guide words. And it takes quite a bit of time for some of our students to catch on to it. And so I'm not gonna have you guys do the code card. I just kind of wanted to bless you to see the actual code card. And so also what we've tried to do to support your core content, we have our iExcel. I created all of our students an iExcel account, the students that we share together, for them to, if we have time, that's the if we have time, because I have to mandatory get through our lesson cycle, but if we have time, I let them hop on iExcel.com so they can kind of bring TEKS into our class, because our class does not deal with TEKS at all. But That way, hopefully it's to support. And I'll be sending all of you all an email saying, hey, as we're going through our prep for STAR, if you could just kind of quickly share with me what TEKS your students are struggling in, and I will absolutely give them time, especially on our Friday A and B. All right, let's go ahead and get started. 5 more minutes of your time. When students come in, they immediately know that they have to get busy on that Do Now code card. They go over to the cart, grab their folder. There's absolutely a packet for them to go through it, and this helps them to go ahead and start getting their mind going again with what we learned the day before or last week. So that's the code card. The first concept for the Reading by Design structured learning is for students to not see anything. They have to listen first. They have to be able to hear the sounds. They have to be able to hear the syllables. And then the next step is for them to match what they heard to what they see. Because a lot of times, I stated, they have memorized things all of their lives. And so if they see it, it's so funny sometimes when I'm giving them a word, they have to break it down and pull out the phonemes in the word. I can see them trying to see the word. They're trying to see it in their mind. They're trying to reach back in their mental database and grab that word. And I stopped them. I said, hear it. Don't try to see it inside your mind. And so with the listening piece, this is our daily lesson objectives. Every day we work on all of these components. And so phonological awareness is what you hear right there, not what you see. And so let's jump into syllable deletion. This is where you guys participate. Syllable deletion is, well, first before we get into syllable deletion, let's get into counting syllables in a word. Okay, so we just talked about the word butterfly, okay? And so one of our strategies is to use the counter. So if you'll grab your counters and pull them in front of you, and the practice is we'll say the word butterfly, butterfly. And every time your mouth opens, you'll push a counter for that syllable, okay? So on the count of 3, butterfly, let's go. Butterfly. And so Miss Blaine, she's using both hands. She used her counters and she used the opening of the mouth. Some students prefer one or the other, but either way, it helps them to know the segmentation of that word, right? And then we jump into syllable deletion, which is where a lot of times they start struggling. Okay, so syllable deletion works like this. I say a word, and a word we use in this class often is echo. Echo the word, which just means you say what I said, right? So I'll say the word, you echo the word, then I take a part of the word away, you tell me what's left. So the practice word is turkey. Echo?
Turkey.
Take away tur, what do you have left?
Key.
Okay, excellent. You see how automatic that was for you? You wouldn't believe how some of our students are sitting there thinking, tur, and trying to figure it out. But that's the easy part for a lot of our students. If you remove the initial syllable of the word. Here we go. The next word is create. Echo.
Create.
Remove cree.
Eight.
Winter.
Winter.
Remove winter.
Tur.
Excellent. Now we're going to move to initial phoneme deletion. This is a bit of a struggle for some of our students. Well, we are not just removing a syllable, but we're removing a phoneme. We're removing a sound part. They have to dig in and hear all the sounds.